Sea turtles are an incredible champion for ocean and coastal conservation, and that's because they are living, gentle dinosaurs. They are not predators of the ocean. They're not the animal that we are scared of. They're the animal that we adore. And they have this unique way of creating these connections with people that inspire behavior changes. And so everything that we do, if you get down to the nitty gritty, is all about inspiring that behavior change, not only helping making people feel important, but they're doing it through behaviors that they do. And that's where Vero Go Zero comes in. That's really focused on creating zero trash, zero waste in our community.
Hello and welcome to the Conspiracy of Goodness podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Linda Ulrich, and I'm also the founder of the mothership website of this podcast called The Goodness Exchange. So if you really wish the world was better than what we see on the news and social media, I'm here to tell you it is. There is not a problem with good things in the world and people making progress. It's simply an awareness problem. We're just not having that kind of news rise to the top of our feeds. But we're changing that at the Goodness Exchange, and we're going to start today with an amazing interview with a nonprofit founder, Kendra Bergman, who is doing what she can in this world to advocate for sea turtles. Giant sea turtles are one of the most fascinating animals you could ever stumble across. And Kendra and I have just spent 6 days in Costa Rica together with a group on a conservation sea turtle advocacy trip. So I am more informed about her topic in this interview than anyone I've ever interviewed. Kendra is the founder of a amazing nonprofit in Vero Beach, Florida called Coastal Connections. We're going to hear all about that journey. She is definitely one of these thought leaders I like to interview who saw a problem and is solving it. Not just wringing her hands and saying how difficult the world is, but actually doing something about it. She started Coastal Connections in 2017 with about 8 people and a minimal process-oriented project. And now she's got more than 100 volunteers and got so many things going on. We got to get right to it and talk to Kendra Bergman about sea turtles and conservation and all that's going on that we can celebrate. Welcome, Kendra Bergman.
Thank you, Linda. I am just so excited to be here today. We're going to talk about my story. We get to talk about my passion, which is the nonprofit that I founded, and ultimately what drives that, what drives this work, right? And that's really my most favorite topic, right? Is the driver, which is people and the good that people want to do. And I think that drives every accomplishment, every achievement, every impact that we make through Coastal Connections is because we know that people want to feel important and people want to make a difference. And they can do that. And we provide those ways to do that. So excited.
It is so big. It is so big. And I have to start this interview by telling just a teeny bit of a story where I can wholeheartedly respond to what you just said. People want to matter, and they have passions that they're just waiting for something to come along and ignite. So before the trip I took with Kendra to Costa Rica, I went to Vero Beach and stayed with my best friend since kindergarten. And just so happened the second day I was there, your organization was called or was able to dig up a nest that had hatched 3 days earlier to see if there were any baby turtles in there, do some research, release a few that maybe didn't make it out, all the things. And so I was able to see what you're actually doing on the beach and film it right below the stairs.
Yep. And I wasn't even there. That is purely my team of passionate, driven volunteers. And that's the best part, right? You got to see a totally different side of the admin, Yes.
I got goosebumps thinking about it right now. I tell you, folks, my friend said, oh my gosh, there's this turtle nest right underneath the stairs. It was just a block from her where she lives, and there we were able to really give folks the actual film footage and oh my gosh, I was standing in the stairs filming down below, and there was this amazing woman standing next to me on the stairs just narrating the whole thing and giving me all the science. Oh, I forgot her name, but I'll make sure it's in the show notes.
I was going to say any number one of our teams is able to do that. So it does not shock me one bit because they've gone through years of training, and we're constantly working on our inner culture to make sure that passion is never put out, right? And they constantly want to talk to people. And that's the best part, right? You attended one of our standard sea turtle nest excavations that we have to do as part of a scientific partner for the state of Florida. All of the data that's collected during that nest evaluation gets sent to the state of Florida and the federal government and even our local government to help with management decisions that need to be made in order to continue helping protect and helping this species recover from the endangered species list. And that's why we do that. That's the core of why we do that. But we know we can't do this alone. 150 volunteers in a small, nonprofit group are not going to be the ones doing all of that work. It is inspiring everyone else around them that we can make that change. And that is where we're making a difference, right? And you got to be a part of that.
That is exactly where. Yeah. Yeah. This wasn't, you have like public digs that you actually publicize so you can get the public fired up. This was a private situation, but people did wander up from the beach.
Yeah.
And their eyes were so bright when the gals let those 3 little babies go that would have perished for sure. So let's give people a little bit more background. As I understand, I'm going to have you correct me. But okay, so there's all the 7 species of sea turtles in the world are endangered.
Correct. So there are 7 different species of sea turtles that can be found in different areas of the entire global ocean. And of those, all of them are considered threatened or endangered, right? And that's at different levels. So on a global stance, they're either threatened or endangered, but there's specific subpopulations that might have more critical status than others of that same species. So, for instance, the large leatherback turtle. We have this leatherback turtle nesting in the state of Florida and across the eastern coast of the United States. And the population of the Northwest Atlantic leatherback is actually stable and slowly recovering, right? However, the population in the Pacific, the Pacific leatherback, is rapidly declining. And so that's why on a global status, they're still considered endangered, but in different part of the world, their populations might be having a different reaction to threats that they might encounter around them.
Okay, so just to kind of give people the overview, because these are all things I learned. I wasn't particularly a turtle nerd before. Okay, and of those 7 endangered or threatened species, there are 3 that like to nest on the part of the Florida coast where Vero Beach is.
We do have 3. So those are the leatherback that I just mentioned, the loggerhead turtle, which is the most common sea turtle species found in Florida and the United States nesting, and then the green turtle, which is the second most common and one that has the most miraculous conservation recovery story that we're currently experiencing. One that, as scientists, we finally feel a little more comfortable to say, we're in a conservation success story now, which is very exciting. And then I have to do a plug for the little bitty, critically rare Kim's Ridley turtle, because they're not a common nester in Florida. They're primarily nesting in the beaches of Mexico and Texas. They spend a lot of time living in the Gulf of Mexico and the Gulf Stream. And what we found over the past few years is all of a sudden we're having consistent Kim's Ridley nesting in terms of 5 to 7 nests across the state of Florida. So they're introducing themselves, which is very interesting, especially as they are the most rare sea turtle species in the world. And we're starting to find Florida's a new nesting habitat for them. It's so cool.
Okay. More goosebumps. Okay. And this is the gist of this interview and all of the interviews on the Goodness Exchange, is that there is good news going on. there's bad news, but there's good news. And I definitely want us to, as we talk about the harder things, I definitely want you to throw in these successes, because I'm assuming just 20 years ago, there was nobody like you mentioned, patrolling the beach in the morning to see what sea turtles came and went. And let's talk about that. Okay, so there's the three species, maybe four, that nest on the Florida coast, and your organization is monitoring, doing the science, helping the species on a stretch of about how much?
I will say our nesting and research work happens in Indian River County, Florida, which is a 22.4-mile stretch of beach on Florida's east central coast. And our organization is part of a statewide network. And I never want to take claim that it's not mine to take. The entire state's conservation work is possible because of this network of nonprofits, government agencies, university partners, environmental consultants. All that combination of all of us is what makes sure that every single inch of sandy beach in Florida is monitored for sea turtle nesting year round in a very strategic protocol, or a very strategic way that can be analyzed through detailed research that is far above my head, but it can be analyzed annually and through time to actually tell us answers. What are we doing? Are we doing the right thing? Is it helping? Are these species recovering? Are we able to inform these policies that are saying, okay, you got to help all these endangered species. This is how you do it. So we are part of that network, and we're proud to be part of that network with it, which is the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission Marine Turtle Permit Holders Network. And so, yes, we are a permit holder. Yes.
And that is something that I found super inspiring. I don't know if there's a better word than inspiring. It was so inspiring to learn. Now, tell me if I've got this right, that there probably isn't a single stretch of beach along our whole eastern coast that's not monitored by some group, kind of like yours.
Every sandy speck of beach is monitored from at least, at minimum, May to October, if not March 1st or earlier to October. So anywhere between 6 to 8 months out of the year, daily.
So you're talking thousands of people are looking after this one aspect of our world and our future. And I suppose is it likely to say that lots of places around the world you're going to find advocates for beaches and sea turtles everywhere around the world now?
Sea turtle conservation is a global activity. And what's really cool and a positive thing to think about is how that global activity is changing. And part of that is through the concept of ecotourism. There's been tons of studies about ecotourism, about financially how beneficial that activity is, and culturally how beneficial that activity is. We've learned, sea turtles are on the endangered species list, specifically because they were just over harvested or taken too fast, too many too fast. And that's because we just at that time didn't know the science behind how they reproduce, the time frame in which that happens, and certain factors that need to be in alignment to make sure reproduction is successful, right? We didn't know a lot of that even just 50 years ago. It's crazy, right? And so now we do. And what we've learned is that fishing for turtles, even though they might provide good meat or good accessories or good other tools, that is a less valuable way of utilizing a sea turtle than taking people to different parts of the world, just like you did, to go see sea turtles. And you infused hundreds of thousands of dollars into that local economy so that to keep that natural resource available and ongoing. And that's all what ecotourism is all about, is a sustainable way to support and protect the environment, and inciting these travelers. People love to travel, and that's one of those little ways to involve those unique people, right? Not everyone can contribute to conservation in the exact same way, but people who like to travel, they have a choice. They have a choice to travel sustainably, and they have a choice to travel however else they would like to do that. And so many people like yourself choose to travel sustainably, and ecotourism and doing these activities through ecotourism is a great way to do that.
Yeah. Okay. So let me divide our conversation into two parts. One,
Yeah.
I just want to talk a little bit more about what's going on right in the beach, in Vero Beach, with your organization. Then we're going to talk about what's going on in Costa Rica and probably similar stories all over the world.
Yeah.
So let's talk. Let's just give people a little bit more idea so that they can start looking for this in their own region, or start supporting it, or start making travel plans to places like Vero Beach that have a robust ecotourism take. So what I was so surprised to know is that this thing is very highly monitored. This isn't a bunch of do-gooders just showing up and helping baby sea turtles get to the water, or keeping the seagulls from eating them, which maybe is what I thought was going on there. There is serious science being done at all times. And I'm telling you, when that group came to below those stairs, and I started filming, it was like a SWAT team. These folks are trained. They each had their role, and every single person, it was almost like a pit stop crew, and everyone was on board with the same ethos. They knew the rules. They reminded each other, and they reminded onlookers like me, blah, blah, blah. So give us the whole thing. So a sea turtle comes up on shore, and you guys check the beaches every morning because you can see where the sea turtle hauled itself up and back. So then you guys mark the nest with simple stakes and some tape. And then the clock starts, and take it from there. What goes on now?
You bet. So, in our area, I will be honest, not every single nest gets marked off, Linda.
Sure.
Crazy enough
Right.
as that is, right? And you're probably asking why? Like, why not just mark off all of them so they can all be protected? And the Central East Coast and the coastline of South Florida as well are really unique. The density, the sheer number of nests laid on these beaches is so high that you cannot mark off every nest without creating debris and litter on the beach, or completely taking away recreational space from individual people, which is also not. So it's just that is such a positive thing of like, our nesting numbers in this area are so high that we can't mark all of the nests. So the nests that are marked are actually done as part of a very informed strategy. And so that's the best part. In our organization, you'll see blue stake nests in our area. Those nests are all just marked off for education and outreach purposes, right? So that we can spend quality time talking to people on the beach and informing them of what's going on. Why do we do this? What are we going to get out of this? How is this helping? All the things that you probably learned. So when our team is on the beach in the morning, they are walking up and down looking for new turtle tracks. So just like you and I leave our footprints into the sand when we walk around, they leave tracks. And each different species of sea turtle, the 3 that you named, all have very unique and different looking tracks. So we can already identify the type of turtle just by the footprints or the tracks that it leaves in the sand. And then they also leave unique signals or clues in the sand if they nested or not, because not every time they come to shore, they decide to nest. They're easily spooked. They can be scared away. So a beachgoer walking on the beach at night might freak them out because it might remind them of a predator. If it's too bright, if the beaches are too lit from development or other roadways or what have you, and all these street lights, they won't want to nest in that because they don't think it's safe for their young either. And this part of the nesting period is so critical for these adult turtles, right? Male sea turtles do not come back to land after they're born. Only the females do to reproduce, lay these nests that have about 110 eggs in them. And then the only motherly behavior she has is how well she picks the location to place her nest. Because after she lays those eggs, there's no motherly interaction. There's no maternal instinct to hang out with them, teach them things. They survive off pure instinct. And so it is really important, that time frame when she's choosing a location and choosing to spend a whole bunch of quality energy to climb up onto a beach after living in a zero gravity environment, and then spend all of this energy to come up here. She's going to want to pick the best space, and she'll do that. And then she'll leave these really cool clues into the sand that our team are trained to read. And then if we need to mark off that nest, we do. And then that's when the clock starts, just like you said. It's about a 45 to 60-day window. That's how long these eggs develop. And every nest is different. And it's all based on the microclimate around that nest. So how hot or dry does the sand around that nest get? How wet or damp does that sand? Does the tide wash over that nest at all or inundate those eggs? Because they're respirating through the shell of those eggs, those embryos are. And so there's a lot of really cool, or is there fungus in that nest? Sorry, I'm just going to name all these things. Are there bacteria in that nest? There's tons of really unique factors that go into how long they incubate and how quickly they develop. Those embryos develop into viable hatchlings. And so we typically see anywhere between 45 to 60 days a nest will hatch. And then those hatchlings will crawl out of the sand like a little elevator. So as they crawl out of their eggs, they might take a few days inside the sand to just straighten up their bodies because they're no longer inside of a little egg, a circled egg. They're going to straighten up their bodies. They're going to start getting energy. And then they're going to start moving the sand around. And then the sand just falls beneath them and is like a natural elevator to push them out of the sand. And then they can make their way all together out of that nest and over to the ocean, which is such a sight to see, but it's so rare, right? Because it happens so quick and it can happen at any time after dark. And so I don't ever, just FYI, never ever say, hey, you should plan a trip so you can see this, because you never know when you're going to see it. That's just pure luck. But it is a sight to see. It is so special. And one of those moments when you're like, wow, nature's very cool. And that's what I love. And then after that nest hatches, that's when our team goes in and does that scientific evaluation, collecting all sorts of hatch data, impact data. Was that nest impacted by predators or people or things like that? So that's what you got to see, and that was the really cool thing.
So one thing I found interesting is that there's all kinds of very stringent laws about when you guys can go in, dig up a nest after it's hatched, and then do all the science. I mean, there was a woman with a clipboard, and there was a person with like a cookie sheet that was laying. Okay, so let me just tell you the specifics. The nest that I saw that you guys dug up, you have to wait 3 days. Is that
3 days?
3 days after all the major hatching has happened, you can dig up the nest, and then the deal is you're looking for egg cases, which means the turtles got out of their eggs. You're looking for any babies that didn't make it out of the nest. You're looking for, what else are you looking for? Like it's like the ratio of hatching.
The ratio of hatched versus unhatched eggs. If any of those eggs show damage, so do they have a slit in them that shows us that a ghost crab fed on that? Or does it have a tiny hole because ants got to it? Or were there previous notes that a raccoon actually dug into that nest and partially predated it? Or our team, like I said, is on the beach every day, and they're looking at every single nest. So we know anytime if there was a high tide event, if a tide washed over a nest. And so we can look back at those previous notes, those past notes as well, and compare and see if that played into the overall hatch success ratio. And that is the number that everyone always wants to hear. And on the beaches of Vero Beach, that hatch success ratio is about 80 to 85%, which is pretty incredible.
Yeah. Okay. So in my particular case that day, there was a lot of disappointment because this nest had been inundated by water. The tide, it was a full moon. The tide had come up really far. And so you mentioned it a few minutes ago. There's actually respiration, a form of breathing happening through those eggshells. And of course, if the nest is inundated with water, that drowns many. So what we found, not sad, just the circle of life, was that we had an entire cookie sheet full of little babies that didn't make it out.
Yeah.
And while that's sad, they also found three little guys in there that were struggling, that were still very vital and very ready to add to the universe. And so they did all their counts and did all their measurements and took all that science, and then they took the three little guys, not all the way to the water. There is some benefit to them having to make their way to the water, right?
Yes, there is. And there's a couple published pieces of work that actually talk about the imprinting process and that very initial stage of sea turtles having to make their way through the breaking waves and really get a sense of the beach and the environment around them, right? Because they do imprint on these beaches. They're known to return. If those are female turtles that hatch and they make it 20 years to adulthood, they might actually start reproducing, and they're supposed to, if they do, they're going to come back to this same beach, this same general area of Vero Beach, and start nesting, laying their nest here. So they have to know where's home, and that process is very important.
Yeah, that was fascinating. Okay, so there's this part of your equation. I'm going to look over here to the right because I found the most amazing document in your strategic plan. And there's this great graphic that talks about the other things you guys do. So also, I'm assuming you do some rescue and release.
You bet. So in our world at Coastal Connections, our mission is to help protect coastal habitats for sea turtle survival by involving all of you in the conservation success story of sea turtles, right? And so there's many ways to involve. When you're talking about involving all people, we're talking about we have to be diverse in our approach. We can't just do science and research, and we can't just do recycling work. You got to do it all. And that's the document that you're looking at, is really shows this cool image of how our approach is diverse, but all centered around the conservation success story of sea turtles and involving all of us in it. And so, yes, we do have a part of our team that is dedicated to the rescue of sea turtles, right? We are the primary, what we call stranding responder. So when a sea turtle strands or is no longer able to swim or act in a normal behavior. And so we rescue anywhere between 250 to 300 turtles a year, or we respond to, we should say. We have a lot of turtles around us, right? And so a lot of those get documented. Some of them get released because they're younger hatchling turtles that just wash back ashore or were unable to make it out past the rough surf. But then some of those are turtles that need very intensive care from other partners that operate sea turtle rehabilitation facilities. So we have local zoos in this partnership. We have local rehab centers, all across, there's 13 of them across the entire state of Florida. And it's all part of that network, right? And we transport a lot of sea turtles to these rehabilitation centers that need medical attention and long-term care. Yeah, and it's so much fun to do that.
Oh my gosh! Well, I could tell these gals, the folks. It wasn't just women; it was a whole group of people. I could tell they all had their own special expertise, and they were super knowledgeable about this, that, and the other thing. That's another thing I want people to take away from this is that this is not just like a feel good thing for these folks. All your volunteers are taking this amazingly serious, and they are educated, they are disciplined, they are. I just couldn't believe what good people they were. It was just, I don't know. I got goosebumps now just rethinking about the energy of those. I'd say there were about 8 or 10 that day. Those folks, and again, you weren't there. None. They don't need a leader. They are self-organizing in the most magnificent, caring, altruistic, graceful way. It was very, very
The
extraordinary.
leadership that happens behind the scenes. They don't need someone standing there to make that happen, because we do so much work behind the scenes to empower those people, to make them feel like, again, that is the way that they're making a difference, right? You're going to make a difference in a different way, but that's the way that they're making a difference, and they're doing a great job.
Amazing. Thank you to you all. I'm assuming some of those folks will listen to this interview, and the world thanks you. That's it. I mean, we each are uniquely built to contribute something. That's what the good 10 years of the Goodness Exchange has taught me. And your folks have definitely found what they are uniquely built to contribute.
Yes.
Okay. So we should say something about community and, building an ecosystem of conservation
Yes.
in your community, because there's a Vero goes zero notation on this
Yes.
graphic. Talk to me about that.
So that's another part of what we do, right? Involving all people. So, right, sea turtles are an incredible champion for ocean and coastal conservation. And that's because they are living, gentle dinosaurs. They are not predators of the ocean. They're not the animal that we are scared of. They're actually the animal that we adore and we love. And they have this unique way of making people creating these connections with people that inspire behavior changes. And so everything that we do, if you get down to the nitty gritty, is all about inspiring that behavior change, not only helping making people feel important, but they're doing it through behaviors that they do. And that's where Vero Go Zero comes in. That's really focused on creating zero trash, zero waste in our community. And so that is our sustainability initiative. And we have a ton of different programs within that initiative where we can involve all types of people, businesses in our community, individual people in our community, government partners in our community. We have a really cool program that I love to talk about, which is called wrap recycling. So sea turtles' favorite food is jellyfish. And when you're talking about, let's say, the material that you see around your dry cleaning when you go pick it up, or the bags that are your bread bags, right, that you get from the grocery store, if that doesn't make it to the landfill and it makes its way out into the ocean, when it's floating around, that material looks like a jellyfish. And tons of studies have found that sea turtles are being tricked into ingesting this non-viable food source, which is our plastic film, our plastic trash. And so this program is really geared to working with local businesses for free, helping them recycle this very unique single-use plastic material. We've recycled multiple tons of material in the past couple of years. We are at probably 2 tons already this year. And all of that material, when recycled, gets transformed. It's purchased by a company called Trex. And that company makes outdoor decking and outdoor furniture, like benches or playground material. And many people probably have that material as their outdoor backyard deck, Trex. And that comes from single-use plastic film that is recycled. And we're so happy to be a contributor of that and work with those local businesses. And it's free to them because we have this empowered group of individuals who go all over the community and pick that stuff up for them, which is so cool. That's a wrap recycling. We manage a fishing line recycling bin.
Hey, before we go to fishing line, because that's a big subject here, I just want to mention about how important that little aspect that you just spoke about is. Like, one thing leads to another. One person inspires another. So I spent a couple days in Vero Beach with my friend Cheryl before we went on a trip, and we of course had to walk the strip where all the shops are.
Yep.
And we went in one shop, and one thing led to another in the conversation. And this woman behind the desk that was showing me this scarf I wanted to buy, oh my gosh, she is one of those people that goes and picks up this plastic at countless places all over town.
43 businesses and counting.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was incredible. She was so knowledgeable. She was so inspired. I felt like, gosh, what can I do?
That's just another one of our team members, and you just get to see them, planted across our community, which is absolutely incredible. Yeah. And they make such a difference, picking up a small load of plastic film once a week to recycle it is making this sustainable circular economy that I know that many of the guests on your show have talked about. So I don't think I need to do it. and they're contributing to that. And it's just
Yes.
so important.
Yes.
Yeah.
I do have a guest coming up that is kind of like the founder of this whole circular economy concept, and I'm going to put link in the show notes. By the way, anything that Kendra and I are talking about here, I'm going to give people a link to Trex. We got to support companies, large and small, that are trying to do the right thing. I'll put a link to a great, unique friend that you and I both share, who I've interviewed twice, Dr. Nate Robinson.
Love Nathan.
That was a funny moment.
Yeah. Talking to him right now about a research idea.
Oh, really? Nate Robinson, for anybody who hasn't heard that episode, actually, I've interviewed him twice. Nate Robinson is the scientist who pulled the straw out of the sea turtle's nose. It was a colleague of him who was doing the filming, and I think it was her idea to get the camera out, and Nathan always gives her credit for that. But 2015, this video of pulling a straw out of a sea turtle's nose is, I think, what ignited two things: the world's interest in sea turtles and the world's interest in single-use plastics.
Yep, 100%.
I mean,
100%.
that incident.
It was a global movement overnight. It was incredible, and we thank them for so much for just taking the time to make that video available and talk about it. Right? They both continue to talk about that story to this day, because it's so important for people to know that our decisions that we do in our own home are actually impacting environments outside of our home. And yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I will put a link in the show notes to that interview specifically about that with Nate. The second interview I did was about all his deep sea work. That's a whole nother thing we can talk about.
Cool stuff. Cool stuff.
Okay, so now we get to having you comment a little bit about the fishing, because I stopped you a minute ago.
Yeah.
So
we'll go,
okay,
and Barrel Go Zero is a loaded sustainability effort, right? Because it is the way that our organization, Coastal Connections, is uniquely involving all people, because not everyone can be on the turtle team and dedicate their time to that, or not everyone wants to smell really stinky dead turtles sometimes when they're not all alive. But this is a way that anyone and everyone can get involved. So yeah, fishing line recycling is actually our newest program in this initiative, where we're actually revitalizing the entire program across our county. Again, that's 22.4 miles. And we are putting these very attractive and vibrant recycling bins at these popular fishing locations, so that fishers or community members can just constantly put their monofilament line in there. And then there is a college out in Iowa who actually does the physical recycling effort of this material. So our community, we get volunteers to come out and sort all that material, make sure it's all clean and ready to be shipped off to Iowa. So tons and tons of volunteer support. And then once it's shipped to Iowa, they then melt that down and create new products from that monofilament plastic line. And why this is important for us, right? Entanglements with sea turtles. One of the most common sea turtle stranding event that we observe is boat strikes, and then quickly followed by fishing entanglement, fishing gear entanglement. Primarily in our area, it's fishing line, so monofilament. And so
stranding means they wind up on the beach where they shouldn't be,
or they're floating in the water and they can't swim anymore.
They can't swim. Okay, got it.
Or they're so sick and so ill that they can't swim. So we get turtles that have fishing line wrapped around their flippers to wear so bad that when they go to a rehab center, their flipper has to be removed to remove any sort of infection possibility from spreading. We have turtles that get stuck. We've had 2 turtles that had fishing line and that actually stuck them together. It's wild, the things that we see. We're just trying to get that out of the water through this sustainability program. We host cleanups all year round, whether it's with local sponsors or like local businesses that say, hey, we just want our staff to come out and do something great for the community. Can we do a beach cleanup with you? And we obviously say yes. Or school does that. We get school groups that come out all the time. Or we have regular scheduled cleanups on the first Wednesday of every month where you can watch the sunrise while cleaning up trash. I mean, how beautiful is that? And at the same time, it's really just creating this sense of, a term that people say all the time, take 3 for the sea. All it takes is a few pieces of trash, but it becomes habit every time you do it. And it rolls back to the fact that everyone wants to feel important. And you might say, what's 3 pieces of trash really going to do? But I was looking at our recent population numbers in Florida. There's 22 million people who live here in Florida. So if 22 million people are picking up 1 to 3 pieces of trash a day, that is a massive impact. It's not just about you. It's else are you inspiring at that same time? Who's actually watching you that you don't know? What's that next person going to do? And so we're constantly saying, let's just take 3 for the sea. And they go out and they do a cleanup at least every month, if not more often.
Okay, so I could talk about this forever because I'm so inspired by the people that are working with you, and I want people to remember that this is just one tiny microcosm of life in this world where more and more people are becoming aware, where more and more people are helping the planet. The sea turtles obviously have all kinds of advocates, but there are millions of other people, millions and millions, hundreds of millions of people doing the right thing in different ways. And Kendra is here, and her volunteers are here to remind us there is so much good in the world. There are so much good in humans, and we should just take the negative noise in our social media and news life and, be aware of it, but remember that what Kendra and I have just been talking about, this is reality. That people are taking up the sword for things that need to be looked after, and they're champions, each and every one of them, making a difference in the world. Now, let's take a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about this Costa Rica connection to the whole sea turtle picture. Okay, we'll be back. You know how the constant negative noise in our digital lives feels like it's reaching a boiling point? Now, many of us have tuned out the news and social media almost entirely. Well, it doesn't have to be that way. There are newsworthy stories about amazing progress, innovation, leaps in human potential, and wonders in the natural world, and they're just not reaching the top of our feeds. We can have access to this, but none of us has the time or maybe even the emotional stamina to search through all the doom and gloom news to find what's right with the world. Okay, enter the Goodness Exchange. There, we are giving instant access to positive news for curious people. Did you hear about the recent Harvard study that found that exposure to just 4 minutes of good news can make you 32% less anxious and 18% more optimistic? Well, I don't know about you, but I need those kind of numbers in my life. So, if you want to live with more joy and way less fear, it's really simple. First, you join us at the Goodness Exchange. Everyone around the world has the opportunity to access this kind of content. And we've promised no politics for about a decade, so you're safe from all that distraction as well. Second, you allow this new, more positive, balanced worldview to put a spring in your step again. It can change the way you react to your kids, your coworkers, everybody you come in contact with. And the stories we write about can make you the idea person in your circles. These challenging times call for us to wake up and take control of our perspective. The people who use the Goodness Exchange have the ability to react to the harshness of the world much different because they know way more about what's right with the world. And that's a resource. So subscribe to the Goodness Exchange, our YouTube channel and the podcast, and use this content to live a more expansive worldview. It is still an amazing world out there, and you can be a part of it. Welcome to the Conspiracy of Goodness. Okay, we're back with Kendra Bergman. She is the founder of Coastal Connections, a nonprofit located in Indian River, Florida, which is the Vero Beach area. We're going to shift gears now in our conversation because, as you've heard us mention a few times, we just got back a few weeks ago from a trip to Costa Rica to do conservation and turtle advocacy there. Kendra has partnered with some groups that are, planting the right things on the beaches to hold the beaches. She's partnered with so many people, and that's the deal is that I want you to speak to is how how much is going on in the way of everybody becoming multipliers for each other's best stuff?
Yeah. So our ecotourism leg is the fourth and final leg of that diagram that we were talking about earlier, right? And, between working with hotels across the state of Florida to certify them as a sea turtle friendly operating property, we also ourselves facilitate what we call turtle trips. And so our current trip is with multiple partners down in Costa Rica, which is the one that you went on. And we actually have a Florida trip that we're building that's launching in 2025. So if you just want to come to Vero and experience an eco volunteer vacation here in Vero with us and see sea turtles on our beaches with us that we've talked about this entire episode, you can do that as of 2025. And that's going to be launching at the beginning of the year. But all of that was designed, that the program that launches in 2025 was actually designed off of our Costa Rica trip that you went on, which is an eco volunteer vacation. So you're getting away and experiencing new parts of the world, but you're doing it in a way where you give back, you learn about local culture, you're supporting the local economy directly, and you're ultimately leaving your green footprint behind. And so whether that's through a reforestation planting, which we did, or it is seeing, helping with recycling or a water sampling project, or even doing a beach cleanup somewhere else, but most importantly, you're there to learn about sea turtles, learn about local conservation and research, and see sea turtles, which you got to see quite a lot of when you were in Costa Rica. So it's very exciting.
It was something, folks. Okay, so kind of the hope, and it's not guaranteed. You make it just very clear, but the hope is that you have scheduled the trip to go off at a time when these sea turtles will all sort of en masse come ashore over about 3 days, lay their eggs, go back into the sea, and so there is one particular beach that we were waiting for the, how do you pronounce it? Arabata?
Correct. Yeah, it's a very unique nesting behavior that is not common around the world. But it does happen on other beaches around the world. It's just not common. It's called in Spanish, it's called arribada, which means arrival, and it's ultimately a synchronized nesting behavior where the strategy of survival is that instead of all nesting one at a time and just hoping for the best, we all nest together in this success in numbers concept. And the beach that we went to is named Oceanal. It's a small town on the Central Pacific coast of Costa Rica. And it is known to have the most reliable Aribada nesting events. And that way, it makes it easier to plan these trips around them to see these events. And again, all of that money that you pay to go on a guided tour supports that local community and the local guides, which is very exciting. But yes, you saw the very first day of this Arivada synchronized nesting event where we could just look out in the water and you see hundreds of thousands of just turtle heads just popping up, and they're just staring at the beach, and they're just getting closer and closer and closer. And they're just like, I think it's time. I'm ready. Let's go. And there were already hundreds of turtles already on the beach. And then there's thousands of them in the water ready to come up. It's a once in a lifetime experience. And it's my favorite part of that trip, of course.
And it was also, revealing. We arrived at like 5 a.m. Because so I should set the scene. So we go to Costa Rica, we do something some ecologically valuable exercise, and then we learn. There's always a part in every day where we're talking or listening to some scientist or whatever. Every day was just mind blowing. And then you get the call that the Arabata has started. So then everything changes and we just have to go for it. And this is a very amazingly well monitored and well protected process now. I'm sure 30 years ago it wasn't, but I want to tell folks, you can't just wander onto this beach. They've deputized the entire local population, it feels like, wearing special t-shirts and so forth. Like everybody who wants to, I'm sure, locally can assist in this some way. They've got people that control any traffic. You have to go on this beach with a guide. You cannot so much as think about taking a picture with a flash. If you do, I'm pretty sure you get taken off by the scruff of your neck. And there's like only 6 or 8 people with each guide. The guides are trained. They only use a red flashlight, blah, blah, blah. It was heartwarming just to know that this is a protected process now, that the locals are benefiting from and the turtles are benefiting from. That was very, very inspiring to see that people have come together and found a way to make this work.
Yeah, and your choice to travel there is a huge support for them, right? And you're helping this activity and these behaviors continue. And that behavior is ultimately helping this population of what we saw. We saw olive ridleys, which is a totally different turtle that you cannot see in Florida. We saw olive ridleys, and you're helping that population of olive ridleys continue.
Now, Kendra, I have to share with you something that I've been telling anybody who will listen. I'm sure some want to walk away, but I had an aha moment that I want to share and get your comments on. Okay, so in our world, let's say that most people have good intentions. Let's just start out there. Maybe that's not true, but I always start out there. Okay, let's say. And then, so we see that sea turtles need protection. So we decide to swoop in and let's say we stop the locals from poaching the turtle eggs. Okay, so this is the way conservation has been done in the world for quite a long time, where some sort of outside source swoops in and says, well, that's wrong. That can't happen. Here's a new rule. And I found this science part of what you guys are participating in to be so enlightening. Apparently, I want you to correct me if I'm wrong. Someone actually went in and did the science on this 3-night event and found that the first night, all these turtles come ashore, lay their eggs, but 30% of those eggs get destroyed by the next night's turtles, who dig their own nests and destroy the eggs from the night before.
Yeah. There's so many turtles on that beach. Yes.
Okay. So somebody did the science and said, how many turtles are we losing? How many turtle eggs are we losing on that first night? And they found it was around 30%. And then they looked at this problem with poaching the turtle eggs. And somebody finally said, wait, people have been using turtle eggs for a resource on this beach for maybe 10,000 years?
It's part of their culture. Yeah.
It's part of their culture. So by calling them poachers right from minute one, we've sort of got a non-starter collaboration going. They have been using these eggs as a resource for thousands of years. Okay. So what I loved is that somebody actually did the science and said, hey, we're going to lose 30% anyway. And then they mobilized and legalized the taking of eggs on night 1 and found that really when you legalize it and you offer people a license to actually go collect eggs, they'll only take 11%.
Yes.
And so presumably many of those eggs would have been lost in the 30 anyway.
Yes. So I think this speaks to the fact that we always have to approach conservation with a unique view of what's going to work in this area, because conservation is not a one size fits all solution, right? You cannot apply activities or science in one place of the world and also in a different place in the world and expect the same results. And that is exactly what happened here in the Oceanal area. It is such a unique place that a scientist, or multiple scientists actually, came in to study reproductive success of sea turtle nests in this area and found correct that a lot of those nests are in fact being destroyed by other turtles because of the sheer number of turtles that nest on this beach just uniquely on this beach, that it is more beneficial to actually remove those eggs and prevent them from being destroyed, and thus creating bacteria and fungus on the beach that harm additional turtle nests. And thus it created a legalized economic benefit to that culture, to that community, to continue that cultural norm, but done in a regulated manner. And that community has absorbed that role with so much energy and passion, and they feel so strongly about their role in conservation and also continuing Costa Rican culture. And that is really cool, as that is a conservation solution for that location. Again, it may not work everywhere else, and it probably won't work everywhere else. Let me tell you, I don't know of too many beaches that are just like that one. But I'm so glad that a solution like that was found and is currently being implemented and accepted. Yes.
Yeah. What I really, the bottom line of what I've been saying to people is that, we can no longer just make assumptions and offer knee jerk solutions. We just got to stop knee jerking. If you do the science, you find out that number, that 30% of the first night's eggs are going to get destroyed anyway. And then you find that number that if you let folks harvest the eggs on the first night, they're going to take 11%. And you come out a win-win for everyone.
And it's data-driven decisions. And that is what science is all about, is making informative decisions to the best of our possible ability. And that's what our organization is about. Everything, every program that we do, every activity that we host, there is always data collected around that, because we always want to be data-driven. So it's even better that we are constantly in partnership and supporting and showcasing other projects that are the same way, that are data-driven, because that's how we're going to advance ourselves in this world and continue to move forward.
Yeah, I tell you, the folks that you introduced us to, the other nonprofit leaders doing this, that, or the other thing, it's all part of a beautiful network. So, I want to encourage people to consider connecting with Kendra. Kendra, how can people connect with you about a future trip or just whatever, being helpful?
Yeah, I think most of our information is easily accessible on our website, which is coastal-connections.org. Information about our trips, information about our rescue and transport work, saving stranded sea turtles here in the Vero Beach, Florida area. Our sea turtle experiences, if you want to come on a beach here in Florida and see sea turtles lay a nest, or even see us do that nest excavation just like you did, Linda, those are scheduled, guided experiences that our team is permitted to offer. And all of that information is on our website. And today, I love that we get to talk about everything that our organization is doing, because sometimes it's hard to do that, because Coastal Connections, again, doesn't do just one or two activities. We decided to involve everybody, right? And involving everybody means we have to diversify how we bring you into the conservation story of sea turtles. And we've done that. So getting to talk about everything that we do here at Coastal Connections has been so much fun. And we want you to join us, and we want you to tell other people about who we are and how we're making an impact in this world, because we want to inspire you to make that small behavior change, whether it is stop using plastic water bottles and you use canned water from here on out, or it is picking up a piece of trash, or it is deciding to add recycling to your household activities, or it is, making conscious decisions. If you are a traveler, find out where you're traveling to and find out, is there a certified hotel there that has more green behaviors and choosing hotels based on how they decide to be leaders in their industry.
I think we have this power of the word of mouth. There was a woman sitting next to me on the plane coming back from Liberia to Miami, and she was pecking away very intently on her laptop, and we had a conversation, and she was down there to look for a hotel where she was going to host a big convention, where the company she works for so she had gone down there to compare 3 hotels. And so I said, of course, okay. So, and I said, so what are you finding? And she said, well, the cost wise, they all kind of turn out the same. And so I offered, well, if it's all the same, why did you ask them about their environmental measures and their habits and their septic? And I'm sure I was really hot off the presses there after being with you, and I suggested 3 or 4 more things. But that's the way it's going to work. She had no idea that there was that she could compare the eco responsibility factor that each of these hotels would have. But if it's all the same, I got her all fired up for
That's awesome. And that is word
yes.
of mouth. And it's funny, and we haven't talked about this, but my master's thesis work back in the day, where I was looking at marine turtle ecotourism in the East Coast of Florida, where people will travel from all over the world to come see sea turtles, right? I have documented proof of this. And the number one, 49% of people heard about this through word of mouth, is to do a turtle walk. How and where to do a nighttime turtle walk with a guided tour. Word of mouth. You can never discount. You can never discount how important that marketing tool is. And it all comes down to an organization or a person's integrity and the way that they represent themselves within the field of conservation and outreach. And I'm proud to know that people choose to come to be in a part of an experience with Coastal Connections because of the relationships that we build with each and every person that comes out and learns from us and has an experience with us. And I'm so proud of the team for doing that, because their hard work is building our brand, our name, and a respect in our industry, right? I work in an industry of a scientific community, and also a general community of just people, and I have to build this respected name, this brand. And that's why it's so exciting to be here and talking to you about everything that we do today, because we just get to keep talking about all of our brand and the impact that we're having.
And it's all expansive.
Yeah.
It's all making the world a better place.
You bet.
One thing after another, and sending out ripples that we will never know the shores they're going to land on. Okay, so I always like to end with 2 questions, especially to nonprofit founders. Like, we've been very, very fortunate to have asked this question and had some of our guests tell the most extraordinary stories about what happened next. So I'll ask you the same question I ask every nonprofit. What has to happen next? Like, if you could wave a magic wand, what do you need? Because we've probably got people really fired up. What do you need to take this thing to the next level and have the vision of what's possible become more and more real?
It's so great that you're asking this at this time. Our board is currently undergoing strategic planning for our next 5 years. So, this is the forefront of our thought process right now. And it's all about growing our quality staff, right? We have 5 staff members as of now, and we can't keep up with the demand. Our education program, we can't keep up with the amount of teachers that want us to come to their classrooms. We need educators. I need staff to be educators. I need salaried people. And I'm hoping getting our name, brand, and awareness out in the world is a great part of recruiting who's going to be the next donor to help us get to this next level, because we need those educators. We need that development staff who's going to keep the process of our next steps in line, right? I'm only one person, and I'm ready to take on that next person who's going to be like, all right, we have another 5 years of incredible goals ahead of us. And this is going to take an organized development protocol, and we're going to have to hire that development person as well. So ultimately,
basically, you need donations.
I need donations from people who want to know that they're investing in the impact of this organization, knowing that by taking on more staff, that is who we need to build and reach those next goals. And that's how we're going to do it. Because again, we can't keep up with the demand locally for how many people want us to be a part of their process, their classroom, their service group. It's the number of presentations that we do, the number of offers to do a collaborative project together that we do. I hate saying no. And that just means I need more people so we can continue to say yes. Yes.
All right. So the demand for more and more conservation and goodwill around this, that builds Vero Beach and Indian River County as well. I mean,
oh yeah,
I'm going back, right? Like I went there. I probably been 4 times in my whole life, and I'm suddenly going back because I realized it's a eco mecca. I mean, like this is what more and more and more outreach, more and more donors, especially reliable donors that really want to build a long-term relationship with Coastal Connections. So anyway, okay, great. So that's what we can all do is help Kendra beat the bushes for more funding so that she can have more staff to meet all these great requests that she's getting for building this expansive program.
Let's
Now, lastly,
fund the next 5 years of our development
yes.
plan.
Okay,
Let's go.
perfect. All right. So the very last question I ask everybody is, if this interview had only been 2 or 3 minutes, I'm sure you've learned something, some major thing that sometimes like you watch the news or you see something horrible on social media and that you put your head in your hands and say, oh my gosh. Talk to us about what you really wish people knew.
At the end of the day, from the bottom of my heart, I want everyone to know that they are important and that every decision that they make does in fact matter, and that they have the ability to make daily decisions to better our world. Everyone has the power to do that. And once you start making those decisions, again, I'm going to go back to picking up a piece of trash, going to a restaurant and saying, and ordering your drink and saying, no straw, please. Creating that new habit. That's what I want people to know, is those small behaviors really add up over time, and you really become part of a much bigger movement to protect the environment, but most of all, make our world a better place.
Yeah. And that movement we call the conspiracy of goodness.
Yeah.
There is a conspiracy of goodness happening right now, and we're just not hearing enough about it. And you're certainly a charter member of this new landscape that's opening. Thank you so much, Kendra Bergman of Coastal Connections. Look it up. I want to reiterate that there will be a complete article that goes along with this with links from every single thing that Kendra and I talked about, but you can only find it on the Goodness Exchange website. So go to the Goodness Exchange website, put in Kendra Bergman's name, and you're going to find a host of next things to do and to connect with. Thank you so much, Kendra Bergman.
Thank you so much for being here. It's such a pleasure and such a fun time always getting to talk to you. You are just a library of just great knowledge that I am also absorbing from you. So it's just so much fun to be able to sit here and exchange thoughts and ideas and concepts with you all the time. It's so great.
Well, I kind of felt like the Hermione Granger of our trip because so many of the topics, you know how she is in the Harry Potter, she's always the know-it-all person. But I've interviewed now 200 people and we've written thousands of articles about people like you who are championing something that needed a champion and inspiring others to come along and do what they're uniquely able to contribute. And that makes you, well, sometimes my face hurts at the end of the day because I've smiled so much. If I do 3 interviews in a row, I have to go take Tylenol.
So it's muscle.
So I would also encourage people to go over to the Conspiracy of Goodness podcast. It's on the Goodness Exchange website, but you can just put in Conspiracy of Goodness podcast and check out all the other folks there who are turning themselves inside out to make a better future for us all. They are just as inspiring as Kendra, and they all have something that we can each take away and use in our day. Thank you so much, Kendra Bergman. Have a great day.
Thank you.